and I'm calling to order the special town meeting for the Lancaster Select Board for Tuesday, September 5th at 6 p.m. Note please that this meeting is being recorded as well as broadcast on Sterling-Lancaster television. I will take a roll call to begin the meeting. Ms. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan is here. Mr. Allison is not here, obviously, but he will be here in 9 minutes. So with the majority of the board present, we are going to proceed with non-controversial items on the agenda. I already apologize in advance to our guests from the school. I apologize to those waiting to hear from our guests from the school. You'll have to wait a few more minutes past the 6:05 that appears on the agenda. So, first on the agenda would be approval of meeting minutes for August 7th and August 16th. Is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would offer you a motion to approve the minutes of August 7th, 2023 and August 16th, 2023.
And I will second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And they are agreed to. All right. Next, under boards, committees, departments, I know, well, Jason has 2 of those, so we will wait until he arrives. I have one, which is to say we will be calling I don't know what is happening. This is what happens when they connect everything to one device. We will be having a joint meeting at some point in September, the Lancaster Select Board with the Lancaster Historical Commission, to work to help them with their reorganization and on their charge, and set some schedule for future meetings throughout the fall. So those will be scheduled to look for those. Trying to skip around to things that are easy to tick off. We're going to announce the resignations of.
You couldn't hear what you said. Your last thing.
We're trying to find easy things to tick off the agenda.
I know, but I couldn't
We
hear
don't-
what you said about the historical commission.
We're going to have a joint meeting between the Select Board and the Historical Commission at some point in September.
Thank you.
Yep. Under appointments, we are announcing the resignation of Denise Hurley from Lancaster Cultural Council and Heather Lennon from Lancaster. Oh, hey, thanks, Jason. Let the record reflect, Jason joined the call at 6:03. All we did was approve 2 sets of minutes.
And announce the joint meeting.
And announce the joint meeting between the Historical Commission and the Select Board. So we are announcing the resignation of the Lancaster Cultural Council of Denise Hurley and the Lancaster Historical Commission of Heather Lennon. And then we have license and permits. We don't have public comment until later, but we will later.
Oh, we will.
Yep, there's public comment in this meeting, yep. All right, licenses and permits. There are 5 of them open. Would you like to make a motion?
I have just have a question about
About what we're discussing right now, or about something we're
about
discussing
the
later?
appointments and resignations.
We've,
Not about Denise.
we've accepted her resignation. She submitted a resignation, so it's not a matter of accepting it.
It wasn't that. It was. May I, with your permission?
I'd like to do the things that we can get through, and if there's an issue
It's
that
a
the
quick-
full
it's a
board should
quickie.
discuss, then we
I
should
don't know if
discuss
there is
them.
or isn't.
Why don't we go through the licenses and permits first?
Can we come back to that?
Sure. Is there a motion as the clerk? Do you want to go through the,
Sure.
someone is saying that the Zoom audio is not working on our, so we'll pause a moment to make sure.
Jason.
Jason, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right. Licenses and permits.
Okay, just question.
Okay.
I'm getting right down to that because I had a question. So I will,
on your chart.
I understand that, I know, but I had a question. So I'll offer a motion to approve the application for public entertainment.
Recording in progress.
Keep going.
I'll offer an application, a motion for the application for public entertainment weekdays and Sundays for the Profound Market, Saturday, September 23rd, 2023, 8:30 to 5, and Sunday, September 24th, 2023, from 10 to 5 at the Lancaster Fairgrounds, 318 Seven Bridge Road.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. Okay, next.
The second is a motion for an application for approval of a special one-day liquor license for the Pro Farm Market to be held September 23rd at the Lancaster Fairgrounds from 8:30 to 5 p.m. Saturday, 10 to 5.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
You'll notice I made that one day because I was going to ask a question. It's a one-day liquor license, but we have one application for a Saturday and a Sunday. Should I make those as two separate motions, two separate permits, because they're one-day licenses?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's,
All right, so that was good.
okay, great. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Jason? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Someone just texted there's a video concern. Is there no video on the owl?
Well, when I put the video on, tons of people said then it got really snafu-ish, so I can try it, but,
We'll try the video again. There is apparently become snafu-ish.
well,
Okay. All right, we're gonna give this a whirl.
if it gets gurgly, I figure people would rather hear than see.
Okay.
Jason will tell us.
He will.
All right.
Or others who are on, have been texting, which is very kind of them. Thank you. And motion.
So let me offer a second motion
Yes.
now, and I guess that I don't know if they need to refile or just pay another fee, but an offer, motion to approve a one-day liquor license for the Pro Farm Market for Sunday, September 24th at the Lancaster Fairgrounds from 8:30 to 5.
Sunday, it's 10 to 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sunday is 10 to 5.
Yep.
Thank you.
That was a good catch on the one day for 2 days. So thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. Okay.
Okay, well, I think just one day here, an application, a motion for a application for a special one-day liquor license for the First Church of Christ Lancaster, 725 Main Street, for Horseshed Fair to be held Saturday, September 30th, 2023, from 10 to 4 p.m.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. Next.
Point of order.
Sure.
I'm walking upstairs. If I lose cell reception, I'll be up in just a second.
It's not really a point of order, more of a point of information, but thank you. I appreciate that. It's helpful nonetheless.
Surprise!
Yes.
I'm offering an application for the town, use of the town green gazebo, offer a motion to approve the use of the town green gazebo for the First Church Lancaster for the Horseshed Fair, September 30th, 2023, from 10 to 4.
There's
On
an
September
asterisk
30th,
there.
2023. It's an asterisk because it was just added to the revised agenda?
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right,
And
next.
I'll offer a motion to approve the use of the town green gazebo for the First Church of Christ Lancaster for Halloween on the Green, October 29th, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Oh, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Just a question, so
sorry.
not on Halloween this year, right? They
No, it's-
departed a little?
I think it was on the Sunday last year, too.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same
All
as
those in
last
favor
year.
signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
New tradition.
Well done, we busted right through all of those items. 6:10, not that bad. All right, so at this point, give me a second, I can vamp just a little bit. We're very, very excited to have our special guests from the Neshoba Regional School District, and I would invite the Superintendent, Kirk Downing, to come forward and present to us on the proposal for the new school for our special town meeting next Monday, 2 Mondays from now, September 18th. Sir?
Thank you, Chair Kerrigan, for the entire select board. Would like to introduce just some folks in the room.
Where's yours?
On behalf of our chair of the school building committee and Lancaster resident, Mr. Joe Gleason, Mr. Mulcairn is our finance and operations director who will be presenting with us. And we have a contingency of representatives on our school building committee and school committee who are joining us all here as well. So we're going to have a video presentation for you this evening as well as a slide deck presentation. Each will be approximately 5 minutes. Given that we've briefed the board a couple of times previously on the project, this is not a presentation about all the totalities and things related to the building project. Our primary focus here was to give you the scope of the project and also be able to present some of the numbers to you as our focus this evening. But happy to answer any questions. With that, I will now go to screen sharing. I kicked myself out of the meeting, so I need that permission again.
Technology, integrated.
Okay, looks like a reset. No? Yeah.
Kirk, while you're setting that up, Joseph Gleason, chair of this
Yes, of course.
high school building committee.
Oh, what, home address?
This is
Joe, what's your home address?
126 Brazel Lane.
Thank you.
This video presentation and slide deck presentation that you're going to be seeing this is a preview for the select board. This is what we intend to present at the
Special time meeting. Fantastic, thank you. So folks at home and on Zoom, you heard it here first. This is what you're going to see on the 18th, so pay attention.
in addition to an opening statement.
In addition to an opening statement. Okay? There we go. Awesome.
Today we stand at a critical juncture that will shape the future of education for the children in our towns of Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe. The decision we face revolves around the future of the high school learning experience, a decision that requires us to consider the state of our current aging building and the opportunities that lie ahead. Let us take a moment to reflect on how far we've come since the opening of Neshoba Regional High School in 1961. Back then, the economy centered around industrial production, and our educational system was designed to prepare our students for jobs of that era. However, times have changed dramatically, and we find ourselves in a rapidly evolving world, driven by technology, digitalization, and sustainability. The World Economic Forum's The Future of Jobs report emphasizes the importance of technology adoption and the growing need for cognitive skills such as critical thinking and complex problem solving. It is our moral and ethical responsibility to ensure that our students are equipped with the skills and competencies necessary to navigate this ever-changing landscape. A new Neshoba Regional High School presents an opportunity to meet these needs. It will be designed to prepare our students for a future where they will be leaders in technology, sustainability, artificial intelligence, and more. This state-of-the-art school will provide a learning environment that fosters innovation, collaboration, and creativity, nurturing the critical skills our students need for success in the 21st century. Education is the cornerstone of progress, and our new high school will invigorate our educators, inspire our students, and provide educational stability for generations to come. By investing in learning and on-the-job training, we can ensure that our students are prepared to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. Moreover, a new high school will not only benefit our students, but also enhance the overall development of our three towns. It will serve as a multifunctional space for community use, hosting events, performances, and workshops that enrich our cultural experiences. The Media Center will become a hub for information exchange, promoting digital literacy for all ages. Additionally, recreation facilities like pickleball courts will encourage physical activity and social interaction, promoting a healthy lifestyle for both students and community members. The new high school will also be designed to accommodate the needs of our seniors in our community. By offering lifelong learning programs and providing spaces for community gatherings, we can ensure that our seniors remain engaged and connected. To build a new high school, we have the support of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, a state-funded grant organization that participates in funding school construction projects. Our towns have already passed a warrant article to support the feasibility study which has identified structural and mechanical issues that local maintenance cannot address. We have considered various options, including base repair, addition renovation, as well as new construction. The preferred solution is new construction, and it best meets the criteria of the MSBA and provides a modern learning environment for our students. The total cost of construction is estimated to be $241,714,926, with the MSBA supporting $64,811,362 of the project, leaving an estimated taxpayer share of $176,903,564. As we move forward, let us keep in mind the accreditation standards set forth by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, emphasizing the need for safe, secure, and adequately sized spaces that support student learning and the curriculum. Our decision today will have a profound impact on the education and future of our children and community as a whole. Let us choose wisely, invest in the potential of our students, and ensure that Neshoba Regional High School remains a beacon of progress and excellence for decades to come. As we move forward on this transformative journey, let us embrace the challenges and seize the opportunities. Together, we can create a bright future for our children and a legacy of excellence for generations to come. Thank you for your attention, and may we move forward together on this transformative journey for our community and its future generations.
I'd like to thank Ms. Bridget Hannigan, our communications specialist, for putting that video together to educate our community. Next, I'd like to bring up Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Ross Mulcairn, to go through some of the borrowing estimates.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing, and thank you to the Select Board of Lancaster for the opportunity to present this evening. I think most of you are aware the same information was shared with your FinCom a couple of weeks ago and has been shared in similar meeting spaces in our other two member towns recently. So again, our goal is to make sure that we can provide some sort of estimate of borrowing costs for this project to our member towns. As you saw, and I apologize for being redundant in the next couple of slides, but you saw that there was options available at the beginning of the project timeline where different options were looked at, 1 and 3A as far as base repair and reno, and then there were several options explored for new construction. Ultimately, 4D was named as the preferred schematic. Option 1, base repair, in short, did not fully address or will not address our educational program. It would take a longer timeline. It would not be MSBA reimbursable. It would work on replacement of mechanicals. It would work on replacement of windows and doors and things of that nature. But again, would not address our educational plan, would not change a lot of those undersized educational spaces and outdated spaces due to constraints of our walls being cinder block and concrete. The option 3, to build on the existing site on top of and in addition renovation, it would generally meet our educational program, but we'd have site constraints. We'd have to move the wonderful athletic field and complex. It would be hugely disruptive to the ongoing operation of the education and teaching and learning of the building. It would be a longer timeline and it would be less efficient and have higher building costs. So ultimately, the 4D preferred schematic was chosen. I won't go into all the pluses and minuses here, but certainly it aligns with our educational program for the future. It would maintain our existing facility as far as athletics goes, and certainly would handle all of our code and bring us into the future as far as mechanicals and structure go. So the estimated building cost And this was the voted number by our school committee. It was $241.7 million. The MSBA reimbursement figure stands at $64.7 million, which ultimately is a total taxpayer contribution for construction costs at $176.9 million. So using the FY24 enrollment data from the high school and our regional agreement language, this would be the estimated per town as far as the construction costs go. So as far as reimbursement information goes, there's a lot of detail on this, but in general, our base eligibility was 55%. After we look at our site work constraints as far as what's allowable for reimbursement, and then we look at the MSBA's sort of maximum allowable reimbursement per square foot, which is significantly lower than the actual cost of construction in today's dollars. Our base drops down, or excuse me, our base rate turns into a reimbursement rate, effective rate of approximately 27%. Superintendent Down, you want to add anything on reimbursement?
I think we can when we get to the Q&A.
Okay. So a couple of key understandings that I want to run through before we present figures is that obviously our school committee voted to incur the debt on August 2nd. The estimates are based on fiscal assumptions of current market conditions that obviously are subject to change. The finalized cost to taxpayers won't be fully known until the end of the completion of the project, and that obviously goes to the annual debt assessment to our towns. Obviously the regional agreement comes into play here, as well as the enrollment at the high school. We did provide draft cash flows from our owner's project manager to our financial advisors at Hilltop. They've been great partners, and we've been working with our bond advisory group, which includes your town administrator and other members of the town of Lancaster, and Michelle Vasquez from your FinCom, and like roles in the other two member towns as well. So initially we were presented with three options as far as approaches to bonding the project. Option A would be bonding everything up front. B would be in stages. Here it says 2 portions, and that's what we were modeled out. And then option C becomes a little bit more nuanced when we talk about annual notes to cover costs of construction and bonding the entire project at the end. So just for the purposes of estimated tax assessment per household, we take the total project costs less the reimbursement from the MSBA. We're looking at bonding the entire project up front, although I'll speak to that in a little bit. We received the town property tax assessments from the town administrators. We've assumed an interest rate of 4 to 4.5%, 30-year term, and again, we use the regional agreement language when it comes to capital assessment for the high school, and we used FY24 enrollment for the purposes of modeling our estimates. So I'll speak to Lancaster. So we used Hilltop Securities. Those are our financial advisors, and I believe the town of Lancaster uses Hilltop as well. So they worked with us to give us our 4 to 4.5% numbers. We've modeled that in here because they gave us your per 1,000 increase, and we held that into the median residential assessment. So if a median residential assessment is that approximately $456,000, 4 to 4.5% per 1,000, these would be the estimated tax assessment per household increases moving forward with the project. Again, this is speaking just to a 4 to 4.5%, looking at a 30-year term and doing everything up front at the start of construction. I do want to say, in working with the bond advisory group, it's clear that the goal that we need to be charged with in trying to meet through our borrowing, whether it's up front or throughout this process, is we want to make sure that there's a smoothing of the borrowing, meaning we're not looking to put all of the borrowing up front as far as it ending up on the tax assessment. The purposes of that, I think, are to be fair and to be good partners with our member towns and obviously their citizens as well. So we're looking at options for that. Again, we are sort of at a pause right now as we wait for votes in town meetings and the follow-up ballot elections, and then we'll take our next steps to work with our financial advisors given market conditions, but we clearly understand sort of the goal for the borrowing moving forward. That's it.
And I'd like to invite Mr. Gleason, our chair, to just kind of give a closing statement.
Thank you very much. Before I begin my closing statement, I would like to recognize a few people here this evening. First and foremost, I have my fellow committee member, Ms. Sharon Plott from the district committee. Also, I believe online is Mr. Shandor Simon, another district committee representative. Also have with me Mr. Ken Fromer, Ms. Kim Early, and Ms. Mara Bailey, also members of our Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee, all residents of the town of Lancaster. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Ms. Fromer and Ms. Cabral, who are also here, just in an unofficial capacity as residents of the town of Lancaster, who are fully supportive of this project. I'll be brief with regards to closing statements. I truly believe this is an opportunity for our town. And I did talk to Ms. Turner about this last evening, and I always seem to be harping on the same subject, so forgive me, my fellow committee members, because I say the same thing. We have a unique opportunity on the 18th and the 25th of this month to bring a new high school to our district with the assistance of the MSBA. Bottom line for me as the chair of the building committee is that if we are unsuccessful in that endeavor, it is unlikely that we will have any assistance from the MSBA in the near future. We were just at the board meeting on the 30th with the MSBA Board of Directors, approved our project unanimously, but before we got to that vote, we had to sit through the last rites for the Dudley Charlton School District, where their funding was pulled from the MSBA because they were unable to secure funding for the project. They were unable to secure community support for the project. So I understand that, as chair, I've been hearing a lot of comments. This is going to be an additional financial burden to the residents of the town of Lancaster and to the residents across our district. I understand that. But bottom line is that we need to carpe diem, we need to seize the day on the 18th and the 25th. And if we do not, residents of the town of Lancaster need to be aware that once we are removed from the funding process with the MSBA, there is no guarantee when and if we will get back into that process. I've been harping on the same community for the longest time now. My former community of Andover just received its 10th rejection notice as of November 22. Again, every community in our Commonwealth presents a different set of characteristics when it comes to funding. And it's not an apples to apples comparison. Andover presents a much different set of circumstances than we do. But the bottom line for me has always been, when I looked at that number, I said, that's 10 application cycles that Andover has been told no. I don't know if it comes to Neshoba, if we do not garner the support, whether it will be 1 cycle, 2 cycles, or 10 cycles. But the unknown is what concerns me, and I hope that will be of concern to the people of the town of Lancaster. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yes, so I have one question for you, sir. And Kirk, you may be able to answer this. But you mentioned the bonding, actually, a member of the bond advisory committee could probably answer it for me too, but that you might not bond it all up at front as a way to, I think I understand that, meaning rather than us bonding $58.3 million, we would bond a portion of that, which means the impact would be reduced on people's tax bills for the period of time that is bonded, and will increase as we bond more money, or will it be roughly the same?
Can you just repeat your question?
Excuse me. If we're bonding less money, the impact on people's taxes until we bond the full amount will be less.
Correct. There's different strategies available to us. We also have constraints of if we bond, and let's say bond everything up front, we want to invest to offset, there's certain constraints around that with regards to your yield and rates. There's also constraints on if you borrow everything up front, or depending upon how you may borrow in different tranches, you have to meet your cash flow needs within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, there's issues there. So we understand the goal and the charge from that group, again, is to sort of smooth out this so that not everything shows up all at once. But again, the estimates provided to give people what does 30 years upfront borrowing at 4 to 4.5 look like.
And speaking of 4 to 4.5 and 30 years, which is a long time, is there an ability, I'm assuming there is, just as with a mortgage, to refinance if the rates, when, God willing, the rates go down? But I wonder whether what the average is for a project like this from a school building perspective, whether they typically get lower rates or or not? Like, could we?
I can't speak to the rates per se. However, the idea of refinancing is not, lost on us. There will be certain constraints. I think it's either 8 or 9 years if you go out to bond that we have to wait until we can be considered for refinancing. So the current, which is almost complete bonding of the renovation from 99 at the high school was refinanced at some point in order to save money and drive down that assessment. So that is an option. Again, that when it comes to public borrowing and public bonding, there's certain restrictions that we are being well informed of by our financial advisors, and obviously it helps to have well-informed town administrators and members at the
We find
table.
it's always
At the
helpful to have
table as well.
Informed town administrator at the table.
It's 8 years.
8 years, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, for right now, those are my questions. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, couple quick questions. So option one stated that MSBA would not contribute monies toward that option. Can you explain a little bit more as to why not? Why would they not?
I'll talk about that. Option one is called the base repair. And so the Massachusetts School Building Authority, their mission is in terms of what are their improvements in order to facilitate what really was aging buildings across the entire Commonwealth coming online and needed to support towns so they could afford it. So they do not participate in just base repair, repairing the buildings that you have. They have some basic programs like accelerated repair programs, of which our school district did investigate that option. If I misspeak, forgive me. I believe that was 2016 in terms of looking at the science labs as well as the roof at the time. Mr. Sikansky, one of our board members, would be able to correct me if I was wrong on that. So MSBA will not participate on that. And through the feasibility process, you have to build in all the options so that you can make an informed recommendation ultimately. And that base repair option, just the cost of the repairs was just short of $100 million. The 120 then is built off of then the soft costs that come along those construction costs. So the base repair would be an $120 million expense to our towns, no participation from the MSBA, and we would not be meeting the requirements of the New England Association for Schools and Colleges, because a base repair would not fix, I think, what is probably the biggest problem with the school, and that is teaching and learning. Our typical classrooms right now are 725 square feet. We have classroom size ratios of 24:1. I've been in the classrooms of some of our teachers that are in here today when they have that many students in it, and it's wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder. And so you can imagine, you cannot do the types of learning activities that we envision for the future in such small classrooms. Those classroom sizes can't be changed because the interior walls are built of steel and concrete. They're not walls that we can take down, increase our square footage to rooms, and put up more temporary or wood construction walls. So it really is, think of it like it's just cement boxes all sort of glued together in the school, which is a major, major limitation for the school in terms of its improvements.
Thank you. Next question. What is the impact to the bonding tactics as well as the towns should there be cost overrun?
I'm sorry.
Should there be cost overrun, how does that impact our bonding strategy and or the towns?
Yeah, so the warrant article is in front of towns is a not to exceed warrant article of $241 million. So if the forecast came that way, we would have to look to internal solutions to have that. There have been historic projects in the past, the most famous of which I think was the Newton North project, wasn't it? We have things built into this project that we think protect from that. So we have the contingencies of 2% contingencies, as well as a 13% escalation on construction costs over the course of the project. And that's based off an annual rate of inflation of 4% for construction costs compounded over to the midpoint of the project. So with that 13% contingency in there, 2% contingency along with the escalation costs, we believe that there is enough coverage if economic conditions change. Because in the event that those inflation rates aren't realized, we don't have to borrow on the money we don't need to complete the project. So it is maximum of $241 million to borrow.
Awesome. Next question, and I've asked you this one before. I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself if you don't mind. Can you review again the process that all three towns are going to undertake on the 18th and on the 25th? I see a tremendous amount of questions. I think I have it right. I feel pretty good that I have it right, but can we review that again, please?
Yeah. There are two tests that our towns have to pass. The first test is the incurring of debt. So the school committee voted to incur the debt. All three of our towns now have the opportunity to validate or deny that vote. And by voting yes, you're saying we want the project. And by voting no, you would say you don't want the project. Assuming that the project were to be approved by all three towns to incur the debt, we then have to pass the second test. And the second test is the debt exclusion to pay for the debt. And all debt exclusions by Mass General Law have to be conducted by ballot because it's an exception to the Prop 2.5 override rule. So it is not an override, it's a debt exception to the override. And so that would be the ballot question. In the town of Lancaster, we are Monday,
The 25th.
September 25th. Town of Bolton is the same day. Town of Stowe is actually going Saturday, the 23rd.
So on that question, I often get asked, what happens if on the 18th, Lancaster or one of the three regional towns votes it down? What does that mean? Is a unanimous approval required to move forward?
Yeah. So that's the first test. So at that point, the school district can elect to run a regional-wide ballot initiative at the cost of the school district that is the aggregate of the three towns. And if the aggregate of the three towns approve to incur the debt, we could incur the debt. However, in that scenario, we're still subject to the second test of having to pay for the debt as well.
Okay, so basically there is a second chance should it not be unanimous, and that unanimous means that all three towns, so a 3-0. If it's not unanimous, then that initiative will happen. I'm assuming it would happen around the 25th also?
When that would happen is we have to wait for those results to happen. The school district would then have to gather that. They have to come up with the ballot question, present that. Ms. Hodges may be able to support me. I think it has to be at least 14 days of notice to the community. Is that correct? So there's a process to that. We would have to have it completed within 120 days of the MSBA approving our budget, scope and budget, which happened this past August 30th. So roughly end of December is when we would have to have that completed by. And if we fail the second time, we could appeal to the MSBA, and we have a 10-day period to present the factors of why we think the vote failed, and they can grant us an extension. It doesn't always happen. My colleague presented, our friends in Dudley Charlton went through that process, and they had a second bite of the apple when it failed, and they had to pull themselves out, and that was quite a humbling moment, I know, for those communities. And they're at danger of needing their schools in them and not getting any MSBA support in the future because their communities told the MSBA that they declined the support to the MSBA.
I'm really grateful that you understand the process and you're able to communicate it, because it is daunting, but it sounds like it's not as simple as a single vote. There's work involved. Thank you for that. The last is a really simple kind of basic reminder question. True or false? All three towns, they show this in the slides, invested $500,000 to come up with the best project with all of our committees and all of the work. So that's $1.5 million. And this is what they've come up with. This is not something that was drawn on the back of a napkin that's happened over a couple of weeks, right? This has been an extensive endeavor, and this is the project that everyone is on board with.
Mr. Allison, I say true, and may I illuminate?
Yes, sir.
I often get the true, false, or yes, no question from Attorney Gleason, so I'm happy to field it from you as well. I'm just saying. That investment was to enter into the feasibility process. And what's critically important to know about that feasibility process is it was not a predetermination that we were going to need a brand-new high school. It's exactly the opposite. It's to walk us through the options of base repair, renovation, addition renovation, or new building. Renovation was out of the question because we can't change the walls inside the building. Base repair, I explained. The addition renovation, I think, is important to explain because we've had community members ask this question before, because they said, we renovated the theater approximately 25 years ago. Can we just build onto that? The answer to that question was actually yes. But if we go back into that slide, the addition renovation that would have maintained the theater would have extended the project 3 more years and actually cost us $25 million more. So the more cost-effective option to addition renovation is a new build. And that was the whole purpose of why our 3 communities invested $1.5 million in the feasibility study.
Thank you very much. All set.
Okay, thank you. I just have one quick clarifying question based on Jason's questions. If it's a 2-3, or 2-1 vote rather on the 18th, one town doesn't vote for it. You beautifully articulated the process that follows that. Do we go ahead with our vote on the 25th, or do we approve the or disapprove the debt exclusion, or do we not? Or do we not know the answer?
Mr. Chair, I have to say I'm a little bit stumped. We would proceed with the ballot question, particularly since it's already been presented to the voters. I don't think that's an undue.
That's an
You
accurate.
can only cancel an election through a court order.
Yeah.
So it would be informational, I guess, to,
Well, I guess I'm
It
more
would be a good
Yes.
poll at that point.
it has to happen.
Okay.
Well, it wouldn't be binding because you didn't incur the
so I guess
debt.
that's-
You can't exempt nothing,
So I guess that's my point.
but you still have to have it.
You don't have to have it, but does it
A
have a point?
referendum.
Right. Thank you both for answering the question I asked. It was helpful.
Everybody
Thank
answers.
you. Ms. Turner, do you have any questions?
Of course.
There you go.
So I've had the opportunity to talk to both Chairman Gleason and Superintendent Downing. Thank you for making time for me. I've had a lot of questions that I've talked about, and there's been some discussions about an article. So the most important one, I think you've touched on a little bit. We talked about bonding. Because as we all know, 30 years is a traditional mortgage. It's the period of time that's selected for this. And I know that you have an excellent bond rating, so you're looking at 4 to 4.5% based on current best knowledge. The bonding agents will tell us. Is that based? I know when you bond municipally, there are different alternatives. For example, being able to refinance or have a convertible bond. You're going to pay a little bit more for that, as opposed to not having any option. Is that something? I know we talked about Kate reaffirmed 8 years, so that's something that is built in, and we can do it, but not until 8 years, should we choose to.
That's my understanding, but again, we would look at market conditions with Hilltop and make the best decision, given market conditions when it's time.
Because this is my experience in the past, that you had, and I think it's a great idea, I endorse it, I'm not doing that, but to make sure that we write that in, because nobody knows where interest rates are going right now. There's lots of speculation. Yeah, some people, and they're going to be 2% again before you know it, and some people say this is the good old days. So having that option would be good, because I don't think I'm very conservative. I think we need to never bet what you can't afford to lose. So knowing the worst possible would be great. So based on the... Sure.
I just wanted to reassure you and reassure our communities, this is the exact reason why we have formed a bond advisory committee with representatives of the 3 town administrators as well as representative from each of our FinCons, because the kind of questions that you are putting forward are the questions that group needs to discuss so that we can come to a collective and responsible decision.
Yes, and I was really reassured when I talked to you earlier about them, so it's good for other people who have been questioning to ask them, and it sounds like a good group. What is the cost of the extra cost to chunk it out, for less of a better word, or to do this more incrementally? Do you need to go through rebonding if we don't take the full 30-year bond and secure the 4.5% or whatever it might be? I know that there is labor, work, time, and sometimes increased cost of going through incremental bonding. Do you know what that would be?
So I wouldn't have the figures on that piece of it as far as doing like notes as we move forward.
Yes.
It's an option, obviously, and we really only looked deeply at the one time and then doing 2 different tranches as we've built out models with our financial advisors.
I think it's important to add to that, we voted a construction manager at risk methodology for this project. And in that construction manager at risk, the difference between that and bid build, I'm drawing a blank, design bid build. Design bid build is that in a construction manager at risk approach, you're able to contract with your subs along the way to manage those costs, and there's a cost savings in that, estimated cost savings we can gain from that. But that also, as we're bonding along the project and looking at the cash flow estimates that are coming along the way, will ensure that we only borrow what we need. If we did a borrow it all at the very beginning of the project before we've gone through a construction manager at risk project, well then perhaps we've borrowed too much if we borrowed all the way to the limit, or just short of that. So I think the responsible approach that the committee is talking about is let's examine those cost flow estimates closely through the advice of our financial advisors and our bond attorney so that we can execute that strategy. And I think that's what our group is going to be meeting on here in the next week or two to discuss the next phase of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the ideal if there's no incremental cost of borrowing. But as we all know, for example, the refinance business is dead right now because even if you had to hire one, the cost of borrowing.
Yes.
I know that's a different,
Yes.
but it's an analogy. So when we'll be hearing that before will we have any more information on that before town meeting?
I don't think that's the objective. I think we did our best to put out the estimates that we have, and again, market conditions are going to change. That's why we're trying to be very transparent about what rates we're assuming and what term we're assuming and what option we're assuming we present these forward. Again, it's clear our goal based on what we've gotten from feedback in that group is that we need to smooth this borrowing out so it doesn't increase our assessments all at once.
So maybe
Just so you know, the short-term notes were something that we as a group said no, because number one, it's the market's too volatile, and number two, we have no idea whether we're gonna be able to borrow enough to sustain the cash flow needed, and so every time you go back out to borrow, even if it's a smaller amount, number one, there's a cost, and number two, there's an unknown in the repayment period and how much we would get. So that would cause a delay in construction. So the ones that we're talking about is like doing a 75 million and 100 million, which is the numbers that we threw out.
Two-tranche approach.
Two-tranche approach. And so the charges related to that are pretty minimal, and certainly the benefit to that to the taxpayers are that you're not necessarily filling the full aggregate total until fiscal year 29 would be the first actual bill that has the entire amount on it, versus if you would to bond it all at once, that's fiscal year 26 is the first one. So that's spreading it out over time as a ramp up. Then you have 30 years, so one will then release earlier than another one.
Thank you for the help. So just to recap, so if we bonded the 75 first, would that, from 26 to 29, I guess, would that be where people would begin to expect to see their tax increase of 1,100 to 1,500, I mean, 1,300?
No, that's those numbers are that's the entire amount.
Total, okay.
Right, so you would see, half of that,
Okay.
give or take.
And would we have to go back out, not knowing what the rates are in 2026 to try to go through the process again?
So we meaning the region would have to do that, but what you all are approving is to incur the debt. How we do that, so this is a one-time, you do it in this ballot question. How we do that and how we spread it out over the life of the loans doesn't need to be relitigated, basically, unless, did we just say that?
You did say something.
Unless the community wanted to, for some other reason. I can't imagine what it would be, but.
Tons. I think it was helpful to talk to you earlier, and I think you touched on it today, that your $241 million and change project is a not-to-exceed number, with a 4% escalation and 13% annual. And even if inflation costs exceed that 4% or 13%, you're still not exceeding the
241 is good.
241, and theoretically, costs are going to be leveling off, and we'll all be happy and get a rebate.
Yeah.
Right. There was a lot of discussion about accreditation, and you were very careful in the way that you answered my questions about that, because there have been rumors that the building conditions were discussed in the 2015 NIAS report, and that generated an application to MSBA, which helped fund this study, am I right? Or will?
The accreditation is not connected to the MSBA in any sort of fashion.
No, I understand that, but the impetus was.
Okay. So would you like me to just describe that briefly?
I think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, if it's related to the building project, yes. I don't want to guess too far afield. If it's related to the building project,
It is, 'cause
absolutely.
it's
Sorry, you guys, my hearing aids are picking up the thing, so I hear the buzz really well right now.
I think because of them, we hear it well too. So that's
Yeah. So this is going to be explained on Monday evening, not to steal your thunder on this particular close, at our final building forum prior to the election. We will be going in more detail into that process.
Monday the 11th.
Monday the 11th at Neshoba Regional High School. And
At what time?
We're at 6 o'clock that evening. Yep.
6 p.m.
6 o'clock, Neshoba Regional High School, Monday, the 11th, September 11th. So, yes, we had applied to the there had been some talk about applying to the MSBA for the accelerated repair program, and that wasn't approved. So the recommendation was made to the school committee to apply to the MSBA for feasibility, and we were rejected in round 1, 2018, and only our second submission were we accepted. Attorney Gleason told a story about a town in the Merrimack that has now gone 10 submissions. The MSBA examined our program, and in that particular year, 141 projects were brought forward to the MSBA. 61 of those projects were for core program building projects, of which 51 districts brought that forward. 11 were selected that year. We were one of those 11. And they based that upon the condition of our current building. And I'm telling you, having seen this now several times, for a building to come forward on its second submission is remarkably rare. And that should illustrate to us what the current condition of our building is. If the MSBA themselves came in and recognized that's a priority project in the state of Massachusetts.
So that resulted in the feasibility that brought us to today.
Yep.
Okay. One of the questions that I heard, and you were very helpful today, was that there's, because of the way it's built, because of the open concept and so on, that a lot of areas are not reimbursable, not, direct education space and so on. That's, do you want to talk to that? You want to speak to that?
Mr. Chair, may I share my screen?
Yes, well, ask the boss.
I'm in, so.
As long as you still have permission, yeah.
If I can actually get out of this presentation, I can do that. bring you forward to this particular page right here, and I'll make sure I'm frozen on the right. Oh, I gotta get into the right spot and freeze it. Okay, you can find this particular video capture on our school building website. That's the site plan. Okay, and I'm just going to come over here and illustrate this to the board. You can see this is the layout of the school. This is coming out of our schematic design, right? These are not formal architectural drawings, but these are the model that would then be built with the first floor and the second floor. You can see in our academic wings, we have classroom spaces similar to our spaces are now. They'll be designed in such a way where we have viewing into the high school, but there's this myth of open walls or glass walls. That is not the case. The interior areas in these hallways are where our collaboration spaces are, where kids are going to be doing some teamwork and ideation. Those are more open and viewable because you need that for supervision reasons. And in terms of the notion of open spaces, you can see the open spaces that we have are open spaces that are very common to any high school out there. Here's our gymnasium space as a large open space. Here's our auditorium space as a large open space. And here is our interior common area. Think of that as the cafeteria. That is the cafe. And so you're able to access from the cafe, the gymnasium, the auditorium, the academic wings, the technical education area. So this central area is a large 2-story area, but it houses all of our food service. To enter into that space, you have to go through three sets of locked doors with our security procedures in place in order to access that place. It is a far, far, far superior building to our current building in terms of safety and exposure of our children to any outside forces that would want to do ill will. Thank you.
That was another question that we touched on. That was helpful. Thank you. So is the collaborative spaces that you showed in the middle between the outer traditional classrooms, are those still considered reimbursable, MSBA?
Yeah. So think of participation rates. The major factor that we have had to deal with here is the square foot ceiling for which the MSBA will participate. They will only participate at 393 square feet, $393 per square foot. And if we were Attleboro and we were walking into our building, having started construction several years back like they did this year, at that time, same OPM, same architect, building designed with like materials that this building is being designed, the cost per square foot then was $550 a student, $550 a square foot. Today, it's $1,100 a square foot. The MSBA cap went from 333 per square feet to 393. So it only increased 20% over that same period of time. Our reimbursement rate by that effect for square footage areas is knocked down immediately to 34%. That's the highest we ever could have gotten out of that because of that ceiling we're up against. So when you look at these spaces that we have here, all the spaces are reimbursable areas to a degree. That cap or some large spaces. So for instance, here's our gymnasium, and you all know the conversation around town around having one gymnasium versus two gymnasium. Well, we have one gymnasium, the fitness center here, and what is the wellness and rad room here. This space number 5, allows us to do sports like wrestling. We can do dance in there, dance instruction in there as well, because athletic activities that don't require the high ceiling. Currently, in our current gym that we have now, that can't be corrected without a major renovation, is the ceiling height of the gymnasium. We've been notified by MIAA does not meet their regulations, and so there could be a future issue there in terms of if that's going to be a space allowed to compete in for things like volleyball, for instance. If you've ever been to a volleyball match, you see the ball carom off of things. And so this building would, of course, solve that issue. And also, we have seating in our gym right now of 600. This is 1,000. We turned away several hundred people from our state basketball game last year, which is a revenue-generating moment for us as well, home and visitors, because we didn't have enough space. This would then expand that space and allow us to seat the entire school in one location for any student addresses that we needed to make. We can't do that now. We don't have a space big enough to do that now. So the talk around the large open spaces, our large open spaces are typical of any high school. It's just our atrium here is the cafe space where our students will be congregating and eating.
Do you have any other questions?
I do.
How many other questions? Just so we can get a sense from a timing.
I'll be quick, and some of them I will just hold. I'll give the brief. We spoke about the time, the staging for the students, because that was some of them, the tumultuous times. I guess they can talk about that on the 11th.
Sure.
Let's see, we talked about the fields. Most of the fields will stay except for the baseball field, and there'll have to be some, most parents will know this, games away, I guess, and so on. You mentioned in your initial your presentation today that you have a classroom, or you have classes with 24 students to 1, 24 to 1. I've looked on state sites as I've been trying to research all this, and the numbers are much lower than, the average number is much lower than that from what I've read. Is 24 to 1 an exception, an outlier, or is that the norm?
The 24 to 1 is this is our policy and practice of not to exceed classrooms of 24. So some classes have 24. We have elective classes that actually have broken the 24. Other seminar style courses don't, so there's variances there. And then when you look at the class size ratios, that also includes support educators that come in and provide additional supports to students, not just in an individual classroom.
Okay. Because the numbers in the state site were a lot lower.
Yeah, I never trust the state numbers because you don't know what the educational design and plan is of any individual school.
It was just
Yeah,
I'm
show
assuming
my,
it's
just one of their relevant metrics, yeah.
you know,
I'm
I,
assuming you trust the MSBA though, just in case they're watching. I want to make sure. The state you trust implicitly.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, you're giving me an opportunity to talk about enrollment. Would you mind?
I wouldn't mind at all.
Great. So, and
I didn't
Mr.
realize I was
Turner-
doing that.
and I didn't even have to use one of my questions.
Yes, that'll take one of Ms. Turner's questions, I know.
Take several.
Currently, our enrollment at Neshoba Regional High School is approximately 820 students, and the MSBA has rated our high school for 925 students at an 85% utilization rate. What that means is all the spaces in the high school, when our students are in there, we need to utilize those spaces 85% of the time, but it gives us room for growth. So
The new high school, you're saying?
the new high school. So when we, it will allow us to scale to 100%, and when scaled to 100%, our actual capacity of the high school would be 1,088 students. So that is 260 students greater than our enrollment today. You're giving me an opportunity to endorse one of our residents, Mr. Dick Trussell, as we've had numerous conversations around enrollment, and he's done yeoman's work
Yes.
in applying the 40B standards of low-income housing just as an exercise, not as a rule, but as an exercise. What if 40B were applied to every zoning development in all three of our towns? What would that yield? And what it would yield at maximum capacity is 107 more students at our high school. Much more, of course, ages 0 to 18. But 107 maximum for our high school. And so you add that to our current enrollment, that gets us to the 925 number that the MSBA rated this high school for, with room for growth.
Thank you very much.
You're now accepting school choice students, correct?
We accept school choice students on a year-to-year basis. So that is something that we can control the valve on. If If we want to turn the water off, we can turn the water off at any time. We are committed to the students that are currently enrolled. We have them through graduation, but this is why we took a very measured approach to school choice this past year.
So does that factor into your enrollment numbers? That was my question.
The total enrollment numbers would factor into that. Current enrollment numbers, yes. I'll know exactly what those are on October 1st of this year.
Are there any other questions from the board? Any other
Just-
questions? Any
yeah.
other very quick, ever so brief questions? Easy to
Is your
answer questions?
lifesaver? Just one, yeah, they're easy. My understanding from reading the MSBA guidelines, and we've gone over it a lot, that at any point in the game, if this is defeated, then you can go back to MSBA within 10 days to present a plan and talk about a schedule.
As they mentioned. Yeah.
Right? Obviously, based on the experiences you've talked about, not what you're hoping to do, but.
Well, we're making every effort today to make sure we don't have to do that.
Right.
Great. Okay.
That, I can
That was
save
not a
the
question.
rest.
That's perfectly fine. All right.
Thanks.
If you have a minute, and I would love it if there are one or two questions from the public who could be concise with their questions so that we could give all the time available for the answer. Anyone in the room have a question? If you do, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. And again, no speeches, concise questions for thorough answers.
Ralph Gifford, 861 George Hill Road. What is the design life expectation for this proposal? How many years, in other words, how many years will this proposed facility be usable?
Thank you.
So as is the standard in the industry for these projects right now, they're estimated to be 50 to 60 year solutions for cost and design. And then of course through good maintenance and anticipated usage over the years, we would extend life beyond that. But this is considered a 50 to 60 year solution.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. Great answer. Thank you. No other hands in the room. Again, if you have a question, please come to the podium. Anybody who's online, we will come to you when the questions of the room are exhausted. Name and address, please.
Roy Rezak, 125 Harvard Road. Question. We're asked to vote either yes or to vote no. Question is, for the town of Lancaster, what is the true cost, including the interest rate we have to pay, for voting yes versus what will be the true cost if we vote no and would lose the funding from MSBA, et cetera? What's the cost to Lancaster of the yes vote and the no vote? I think the town people need to know that because it impacts our financial considerations, both personal and corporate as a town.
So I don't have the and interest numbers committed to me right now. What I can tell you is the ranges that you're given there are principal and interest ranges. Principal and interest is included in that 4% to 5%. If we could pull out a calculator and multiply that by 360, right?
That's for Ross. He's a numbers guy.
Yeah, and that would get us there.
Right, so I'd have to pull our models to give a specific answer, and maybe I can answer through the town administrator at a future time this week. But essentially, in that upfront, borrow everything at the front would be, of $175 million worth of borrowing, you're talking another $130 million in interest over 30 years. The fluctuation will be determined by enrollment at the high school due to the regional agreement over that 30 years, so, yeah.
I believe Kate has
You did the math.
done some math prior to, so.
Someone
very
asked me
helpful to get us there.
that. Someone asked me that question before. Do you want to go to the next question while I find it?
Well, I would just also point out, Roy, we are required to put what a yes vote means and what a no vote means out. We have some yes language now, and hopefully we'll get some no language by this coming Monday. If not, we will have both available, hopefully by the end of the day Monday. So taxpayers.
And that would include the number in terms of the total cost.
I think she's gonna give you the number now.
Can I just, so what you're looking for is the number if we're paying basically for just the renovation with no, so basically 58 million versus 40 million, right? That's what you're
No,
looking
he was
for?
asking basically what's the total,
What's the total cost, including the interest?
which it sounds like Ross just said about $300 million, including interest, yes?
Right, total cost
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it would roughly come out to Lancaster at roughly a third of that, around 100 million is what the true cost to Lancaster of the yes vote is.
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years?
Over 30 years,
Yes.
correct. And a no vote, taking Mr. Gleason's point, if we were to lose MSBA funding, okay, would cost another 46 million for the three towns. Assume 15 million to each town would cost us 15 million plus 84% of that, 27 million roughly. So it would be another 27 million if we were to vote no and lose the MSBA funding and have to build the school at these projections ourselves. So it would be in the 130 million range
Right.
ballpark here.
Right, versus about 100 million.
Versus about, so the difference is a $27 million cost between yes and no, roughly.
Yeah.
33.
However, there's a,
33.
33, sorry, but yes.
33,
Thank you for it.
671.
See why we appointed him to the Tax Fairness Committee, right there? That's why.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
I think that's a great question and an illustration to make, but what I would remind everybody is if the option was that option of base repair, it does not address the problems with delivering the learning program, and we're at risk, and I'm always careful to say, at risk of losing our accreditation. This has happened in other towns. The one I can think of closer to us is when the town of Maynard was put on probation when they did not approve their high school. When they were put on their probation, that motivated the town to ultimately pass their project, and it was at a much higher rate.
Yeah. I mean, I think the point that Mr. Rezak's making is, if we don't vote yes, the cost, even just for base repair, which doesn't meet our educational needs, is far in excess of, anybody who's on can please mute, is far in excess of what, oh, wait until she's done.
Jacqueline Kern, you gotta mute.
All right, so I need to mute everybody. Where is that?
I think that's the only one unmuted, right?
Right down the bottom right.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to mute all.
All right. Everybody's being muted.
Mute themselves. Yes.
Okay.
No, hold up, I need to unmute
Okay.
us here.
We're unmuted. Okay. So the point being, even if we went with the circumstance that doesn't meet our educational needs, it is far in excess of what a yes vote would be. That's correct. And would set us up for a lot of issues in the future. Thank you for raising it. Thank you. Any other questions in this room before we go to the two that are online? All right. We're going to, in the interest of time, Trish C. has had her hand up and Victoria Petraka, and then we're going to cap the questions online there. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to us, which we can forward, I'm sure, to Mr. Gleason and to the superintendent. But we'll go with Trish C. We have unmuted you to ask your question. You can lower your hand now, ask your question. And again, no speeches, make it a brief question so we can get a great answer. Please.
Right, okay. I'm trying to lower my hand at the same time.
Oh, it's okay.
Hey, I just want to say.
Oh, sorry,
So,
name and ID,
meeting-
name and address, sorry. Forgot to mention
Oh,
that part.
I'm from 34 Harvard Road, Stowe, Mass.
Sounds good. Oh, wait, Stowe, sorry, ma'am, are you from Stowe?
I am.
Yeah.
So is it okay to ask a question?
You could shoot an email to us, that would be fantastic. But this meeting is for Lancaster residents. Thank you. Victoria Petraka. You're being unmuted as we speak. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I just need to go back and fact check something. Dick Dressel and I worked on those numbers, and I don't want to be a jerk about this, but we did not come up with that statement, 107. I just was talking to Dick on the phone. I said, Dick, did I miss something? He said, absolutely not. So the calculation is really razor thin, and it's something I brought it up at a finance committee meeting. I brought it up at a presentation to the COA. I am a little concerned that the building is undersized for the amount of housing that is required, not just estimated or, pie in the sky or something, but actually required by the state. So I don't really know what the solution is. I understand from talking to the superintendent that the hands are tied. They're using a template from the state, and ironically, the colleagues down the hall in the housing office, are requiring all this housing, but that's not being borne out in the forecasting model that's used to cap the size of the high school. So I don't know what to say. I don't know what the answer is, but it's factually inaccurate to say that we ran a calculation for 40B and it came out to 107 students. The margin is razor thin, and both Stowe and Lancaster are below their 10% requirement, meaning that we are essentially wide open to additional 40B. Bolton is the only town that is over its 10%. So I don't know what the answer is. I personally am an undecided voter, but I just need to say that for the facts, for the residents that are watching, that it is a concern. I don't know how to fix it, and I feel badly bringing it up. I know how much work has gone into this, but I'd rather we get this right and size this building right. If someone tell me that you can build on a big addition or something if needed, and that might take care of it, but that's an additional cost that isn't factored into it. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Yeah, I would be happy to say I've had numerous conversations with Mr. Trussell about that, and I'm confident I'll stand on solid ground with that number, because when we look at what 40B requirements are, we look at ages 0 to 18 across that. So we immediately have to take off the number of students that are 0 to 5 years old, and then we participate in our school district at a rate of approximately 88%, and so we would have to take then 12% off of that. So if you take the maximum number, and then you would have to take kindergarten to high school and divide the remainder by 13 in order to get to your high school population, and that's where you get to that. So I stand confidently on that number, that this school building is sized correctly in terms of a 10-year enrollment projection for our 3 towns.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
10-year?
Oh, hold on, Ralph, hold on. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other, I don't see any hands online, I don't see any hands in here. We are gonna finish this up with a lightning round question. If anybody on the select board has any quick questions they would like to ask of the superintendent or his team. Do you have any questions?
Quick question, just to follow up here. So I heard said that the school is estimated to be 55 to 60 years in duration, but the population estimate is for 10 years. Can you discuss that?
Yeah, the MSBA, in looking at your enrollment number, has to look at it. They use a 10-year projection model for enrollment in order to ultimately make that calculation of 925. And here's what I'll tell you is, that's the calculation that they've made in terms of what they're gonna participate in. We can build a school for 2,000 students. They will not participate over that number of 925 with a utilization rate of 85%. So it almost brings the enrollment number out of the conversation in terms of, if we want to expand and grow this building more, the MSBCA would say, go for it. But any addition above that, you have to pay on your own.
So it sounds like we are, to paraphrase, we're taking guidance from MSBA to help determine all of these numbers based on their calculations.
Well, it's more than guidance. It is simply a definition of the rate of which they will participate. And then our school building committee has worked diligently throughout the past year to ensure we're going to build a building that is responsible to our taxpayers, that is not indulgent. We don't want any of those, what did we say, Mr. Allison, the gold-plated door handles joke that we had a while back. So this is a responsible building for us to build. To give you a sense, we have 40 core classrooms in our building right now. This building is designed for 40 core classrooms, and it once held the capacity of 1,068 students.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have
I
any
do.
final?
Yeah. So I'm dating myself, but I can offer you a little historical perspective, which I think is relevant to Victoria's statement. So when we built what is now the Luther Burbank and Mary Rowlandson, we had the same concerns that Victoria just talked about, because at that time, the MSBA, used to call it, only gauged how many students were being born in town. And at that time, the 495 belt was growing much faster than it is now, and we were worried about in-migration. We wanted to build a school that wasn't going to be obsolete before it opened, which is some of the neighboring towns did, because they were over capacity. Franklin, for example, was, couldn't even fit the kids when it opened. So I'll finish the question. My wiggly friend. So what we did was we appealed to the school building systems by hiring a planner and talking about that. And I think now with the push for affordable housing and the that the state has, we're a what do you call it? The MBTA community. Thank you. We're an MBTA community, and we just approved a 40R and so on. Is there room to factor this in to give you the extra room should you have any doubts? I know you reaffirmed you're very confident.
We've entered a scope and budget agreement with the MSBA. Their participation is voted on, it's approved, that is it. That is the cap at which they will participate. If we made adjustments to their project, it's all on our own.
And that's an important part to end the meeting on, which is, this is the proposal that is being put forward. And lots of people have lots of great thoughts, but this is the proposal that, after a lot of work, has come forward to us all, come to the state. They've signed off to their part. The school committee has signed off to their part, and is coming before all of us to do our part in this, one way or the other.
Would you mind, Mr. Chair, if Mr. Gleason gave our...
I never minded this.
Very briefly, Mr. Mulcairn, and I'm sure Ms. Hannigan, who's with us remotely, would be extremely upset with me if we didn't mention this. Very briefly, once again, September 9th, 10 a.m., 12 p.m., we're having our final walkthrough. So if anybody here or is listening online has any doubts or on the fence, please join us 10 a.m. or 12 p.m. for a walkthrough this Saturday.
10 a.m. or 12 p.m.?
Yeah, there's two separate tours. Ross, are we still using two separate tours at this point?
Correct, and I'm going to ask Ms. Hannigan to put the link to the sign up in the chat.
Yeah, and it's there's sign up forms on the school building website, not the district website, but the school building website. And I'm going to end this with one final, do my best Tony Reale from Pardon the Interruption with a quick error and omission. Superintendent Downing indicated that the reimbursement rate was at $393. That is correct. The MSBA has been incrementally moving that up. He mentioned it was at $333 and they went to $393. That's technically correct. There was a stopgap in there where they went from $333 to $360 in 2021, and then in 2022 they upped it to $393. So they're moving along, but slowly and way behind the classic construction. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I guess I have one quick question. If they move along quicker before we put a shovel on the ground, we're stuck at this rate.
We have a contract.
Got it. Okay. I assumed that was going to be a question coming from somebody, so I just wanted to make sure I got it out there. We have a contract and we are done. Thank you. And thank you all, everyone from the school, everyone from the school committee, all the committees. Thank you all
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
here. Thanks for a good presentation.
Welcome future updates.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. I'm going to see if we can take a 5-minute recess. Can we do that? Okay. 5-minute recess. One of us can. Our recess is over. As uncommon, our 5-minute recess went a little bit longer, so I apologize. All right, for those keeping track at home of our agenda, congratulations, because you're probably doing better than I am. But we are going to try to get ourselves back on track. Just to cover for folks everything that has happened. We have approved minutes. We've just heard from our guests. We have 2 more items left to go in section 4, public comment, our administration reports. We have done section 7 and 8, and then we will just communications and go into executive session. So with that, under section 4, boards, committees, and department reports, Mr. Allison has asked for 2 items to be added to the agenda, so I yield the floor to you. One is, what's it? We already did that one. I believe you might have.
It wasn't a discussion.
It wasn't a discussion, it was just to tell people we're doing a joint meeting.
Okay. All right, so the first, okay, sorry, I wasn't prepared. Discuss staff harassment. So I am a proponent of accessibility when it comes to meetings. I think it's really important that every member of the community can join a meeting if possible. I'm all for Zoom, all concepts of using technology to further our municipal purpose here. However, last meeting, I think it was, last meeting that we had, we were voting on a town meeting, special town meeting, and we were discussing warrant articles regarding the school ballot question. Probably going to be one of the most important votes in this town in decades. One of the most important, arguably the most important. We had some technical difficulties during Zoom. We made our best efforts to try to overcome them. I get it that residents want to express frustration that they're not able to either gain access, they can't hear, they can't see. I absolutely and unequivocally appreciate that. However, what happened after last meeting I find unacceptable. Multiple residents spoke about going to the state and because of our Zoom issues, having votes overturned. That is crazy. Crazy is not the right word. That is untenable with respect to how we can conduct a town and business. The thought that we would not be able to have this meeting on the 18th because of a Zoom issue is, I can't even think of, it would be an embarrassment. So I'm all for having Zoom, but I have serious and what look like grave concerns if we're gonna have residents to weaponize our imperfections when it comes to Zoom to get votes overturned. So what I want to bring to the board today, and I'm not looking to have a public discussion, is this risk in my mind. The risk that having to file continued appeals with the AG open meeting because of a Zoom issue. So I'm not asking for a decision today, but I would like to have a discussion about the potential risk of having serious votes overturned because we are imperfect with technology. And I will yield to the chair.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your concerns and comments. Before I make any of my own, I yield to Ms. Turner, if you have anything you'd like to say.
Well, I think what Jason is asking for is I thank you for putting some meat on those bones, Jason, because I did not know what this was about. Now I understand. And I think what you're requesting, if I understand you, is that you wanted to have a more in-depth discussion about this.
This is the in-depth discussion.
This is what you want to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I'm not being clear, so just to kind of go back and forth, but if we have residents in town with an appetite to overturn serious votes because of Zoom imperfections, I would be all for removing Zoom from select board meetings. All for it, because we are not perfect. We will make mistakes, but offering Zoom as a way for residents to be accessible is not a requirement. It's something we do to try to bring meetings to the residents, and it can't be at the expense of risking serious town votes.
So I share your goal for open and transparent meetings, and I think that one of the best things that has come out of COVID is the use of Zoom, remote meetings, hybrid meetings, and many towns and the state actually just, that's gonna kill somebody.
It's really not.
Phone board, everybody.
Big paper cut, that's a joke.
Hyperbole, we promise.
I would say, please, yes, that's a joke. So I think we all agree that Zoom has been a real bonus for us. And yes, we're all imperfect. Me, most of all, when it comes to technology. It's funny, I hear somebody in your position talking about imperfection. So you know that even in the business, things do happen. Mistakes happen, it's how you deal with them. So the mistakes happen, and we had a considerable discussion back and forth about how to handle it. And as I recall, the solution was to, once we get the sound reinstalled, we simply recapped our votes and took them again, which I'm sure that the state would support us on. People may have gone or not gone, as is their right. I personally would not have an appetite, may lose this, to remove anything that makes meetings more accessible. As much as I'm the Zoom flunky in this crew. Thank goodness that you're here, because you help out with the OWL regularly. But I think it's a really, really valuable tool. We do have technical issues. I mean, there's frequently people can't hear us. Luckily, we have 3, we're on cable. People can come here, public. So there are alternatives. But you can look by the number of people who are on screen today that it's something that the public is taking advantage of, and I think we need to do it, especially with especially with people's limits and their lifestyles nowadays.
Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk of not being able to have the special town meeting?
See, I don't think that would be a risk because of the way.
I also plan to follow up with the state to see if any of tonight's experience did not meet the open meetings law. That email is from a resident. I'm not making this up.
No, I understand that. And I have no problem, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have no problem with a resident doing that because obviously they're extremely engaged, they share their time, they were very frustrated not being able to get on. They follow up with the state. My guess is that the state said they recapped, they reaffirmed, they did the best they could. Now, there's times when I've been to meetings where I couldn't get in or you couldn't hear things. There's times when the state is going to intercede and say, well, if you shut down Zoom and you never let anybody in, you'd probably have to redo things. It is a risk, you're right. But is it a risk that we can't be risk-free. I mean.
Yeah, I understand that position. I also understand the frustration that Jason's expressing. It is, at this point, it's a way to engage more people and include them and the residents in the process. There are a lot of residents in the room right now who maybe 2 years ago in the height of COVID would have been on. As a matter of fact, I know most of them would have been on Zoom. And it was a wonderful tool to enable the broadening of little d democracy to give people a chance to participate. But what I don't want, the danger comes when a tool becomes a cudgel and people use it to beat back those who want to participate in government, who want to volunteer, who want to take up jobs in public service. And that's where the danger comes for me. And so I would appeal to folks to just, it's very easy behind a screen and behind a keyboard to make comments and allegations and to hurl insults. Just remember that someone's reading it, seeing it, hearing it. Their family reads it, sees it, hears it, their kids do. And they're doing their best. No one volunteers, at least I firmly believe, no one volunteers for any of our boards, no one signs up to work for a town, be it in town hall or in public safety or anywhere, because they're determined to do ill will toward their fellow citizen. No one does that. No one signs up to cause harm to other people. They're doing their best. We're doing our best. And so when there are problems, I said this a long time ago, like, maybe let's not assume that it is a massive conspiracy designed to take down democracy in the town of Lancaster. It is a problem that we fixed. There was a problem with Zoom. I believe it was video and audio, then it was just video. We retook all the votes. We posted a transcript of all of the discussion. It met all the guidelines. I would just implore folks to as you're writing these comments, or like, think if someone wrote them about you, or think if these attacks were being flung at your children or your mother or your father, or someone you know in the community who just wants to help. And then reread your comment before you hit the send button. I will say this, Caesar's wife is not above reproach. I wrote an email this morning that I edited many, many times over the course of the day, and then by the end of the day, deleted entirely. You should have seen the first draft, I'll tell you. You should have seen the first draft. It had nothing to do with town business, but you should have seen the first draft. It was a humdinger. But it would not have moved the needle forward, and the person I was trying to communicate with wouldn't have received it in the way I needed them to receive it. And so we had a conversation on the phone, and we realized the directions we were coming at were similar, and we were trying to accomplish the same goal. So I just encourage folks, this is a great, we live in a time when you can be anywhere in the world and participate in your local government. Isn't that fantastic? Like, we live in a time that in my lifetime we've been able to do that. Where any place in the world you can participate in what goes on in your community. And we want many more people. I would love to be scrolling or to move this meeting every week to a much larger arena because of the people who want to come here. But when we attack with vitriol or any sort of ill intent, it discourages people from not just showing up at meetings, but from getting involved, and worst of all, from voting. And so I would just encourage folks to give it a second thought and to remember we're literally all in this together. And we all want what's best for the town of Lancaster, at least I hope we do. And I will continue to watch these remarks and keep my options open for re-examining my position, because I get your frustration and I appreciate the passion with which you defend those who are being maligned and attacked, and the process that's being maligned and attacked. And who knows what direction we hope, but I'm going to put my hope in people in hopes that they'll choose the better path.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, appreciate it, thank you. Next.
Next agenda item, let me read out loud.
You had, it's closed.
It is update on Hawthorne Lane. So, choose my words here. Hawthorne Lane is just a quick recap. And my goal is just to have a discussion with my board members, since we don't discuss this outside of meetings. Hawthorne Lane is a development project that has had challenges. And there is currently a punch list of things that have been agreed upon, I believe, to be accomplished. That punch list, I believe, has not had significant progress. It's not necessarily the board's role, in my opinion, to get involved in something like this. However, it will be our consequence to not have this rectified through just a series of unfortunate events. So I want to share that I think it's in the board's best interest to see about helping this along, and ultimately I'm here tonight to ask my fellow board members for endorsement to work with the residents of Hawthorne Lane and/or the developers and/or our town administrator to help further this along. I'm not looking to color outside the lines. It's really about there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that need to be accomplished, and to work with Hawthorne Lane, whatever that means, and the developer to get them resolved, or at least to get them moving forward. I believe that's in the best interest of the town. I believe that is under the select board preview to build bridges and help help bring this to closure, because it's not closure today.
So I know, because we sadly have had this conversation at least one of the times since I've been on the board, and some progress got made, but again, to your point, not nearly enough, and we should be well at completion by this point. I know, Kate, you've had some conversations with folks there. Do you have any concern if the board tasked with Jason with working with you and the relevant boards to
No,
be our sort of-
I guess we just had one meeting, and it really is just when I first began to try to understand. And I put some things in your packet, but certainly conservation and planning has their own list, and the one that I had there was a staff level, but it might not be exhaustive, so,
Good.
you know.
Do you have any questions,
So-
comments?
We like to call it pre-Steve, pre-Kate. Back in the good old days when Jason and I and Jay were.
Whoa, don't bring me into your dinosaur ages. I don't know.
Jason and Jay and I were working, we did have, Jay actually worked with town officials to try to help lead an effort and consolidate information, because it's a very complicated, convoluted problem, and I think inserting us, while I don't object to it, and it wasn't particularly, I don't think, helpful, the developer and the building inspector as a zoning enforcement officer were really the two crucial parties, and I want to just make sure that we respect the other boards, which I know you would, that are involved in that. So do you think it would just complicate it more as it did in the past, or do you think you can?
From my perspective, no progress is being made. And I think that is not what the town, I don't think that's in the best interest of the town in its totality, certainly not in the best interest of Hawthorne Lane. And we just need resolution, whatever that is, or at least a forcing function to have questions answered, because nothing is happening today.
So I would say, I remember when I came on the board, I benefited from the great work that Jay had done, because he informed me a lot about work that was being done at Hawthorne. And I think we were able to provide some clarity as to some circumstances around the planning boards and previous involvement and some of the circumstances. And so I do think there's a role to play with the convening authority that comes with being on this board. And frankly, the ability to let folks know that we're watching them. Ultimately, it's the other boards and the building commissioner and the developer have to resolve it, but I do share your concern, and I'm willing to go with the suggestion.
Sounds like you're asking to be sort of a moderator.
No labels, I don't want to start talking to residents and talking to whomever without y'all knowing my intentions, and that's all this was.
That's wonderful, thank you for asking.
Appreciate it.
And as a moderator, I think that would be great, and just,
Okay, I don't know what a moderator
To
does.
be very
but-
clear, we have a town moderator. We don't
Much
want him to
different.
think we're taking his job away.
Much different.
Although some days
Just
he
to
probably
facilitate-
wishes.
Facilitator.
facilitate
Facilitate.
conversation.
Excellent idea.
Or just be a member of the select board who talks to folks.
Thank you very much. And that's.
And those are those, so I think that gets us to public comments, yes? All right, so public comment, reminder, public comment, if you're in the room, please go, perfect example, thank you, to the podium, name and address. The SJC, as a reminder, said you can say anything you want from the podium. We get to decide, however, how long you get to say it. So 2 minutes you'll be allotted. I will raise my hand to give you a sense of when you have 1 minute to go. But at the end of 2 minutes, your time will be up. And so we'll go with folks who are in the room first, and then, just as Larry has demonstrated online, anybody who would like to make a comment online, throw your hand up there, and we'll go to online folks after in the room folks. Go right ahead.
Okay, first of all, I would like to echo your words that nobody volunteers to this town without having the town's best interests at heart. And being a volunteer, being an elected official is a hard job at times. And I'm here to talk about, you mentioned Heather Lennon's resignation. She in fact did not resign. So according to Mass General Law, a resignation is only effective once it's been submitted to the town clerk in writing. And that has not happened. So your acceptance of her resignation might be in question. And also, that there's an unfortunate series of events that caused this to happen. And since I have a limited amount of time, so Heather sent a registered letter rescinding her verbal resignation to you, Mr. Chairman, and then requested a public hearing so she could present facts and understand why she received an email saying that she had could have broken the law. And to date, that has not been responded to. And by law, again, Mass General Law, that is a requirement. When somebody asks for a hearing, they are entitled to one. And I respectfully ask that communication and transparency be given this topic, because it's someone who has volunteered nearly 20 years to Lancaster's history deserves better than that.
Thank you.
I have handouts.
Next.
Paragraphs. Well, I have handouts for you.
Thank you so much. All right, anybody else in the room, in this room? Take to the podium and you get 2 minutes. Oh, yes. And give your name and address, please, sir.
Dave Moody, 144 7th Ridge Road. I've been asked by a bunch of people about the government study committee and what we're doing. I have to answer, the committee formed by a warrant article at a town meeting that we may have had very few meetings and only devised a survey, which has not seen the light of day. The chairman was you, Steve, and it's, I don't think you've got a committee left there. I don't think there's enough people to do it. I also believe that the Economic Development Committee has disappeared. I believe they acted responsibly getting the developer to attend and pay for several studies. They held their meetings and maybe allowed too many questions and comments from the same people, but did their best to get answers. I was told that members did not come forward to continue. When I was on the select board, I did not wait. I called and went to people's houses to try to get the members for committees, and I still did that. Finally, just a thing on Heather. She has done more work for this town over the years that she's been here than everybody that's sitting at the table. And I think she deserves a little more than what she's getting for what she has done for the town.
Thank you for your time. Anybody else in the room? Name and address, please.
Ralph Gifford, 861 George Hill Road. And I rise to speak in support of Heather Lennon. Heather has served Lancaster faithfully for many years on Lancaster's Historical Commission. And I'm concerned that we are moving in a bureaucratic direction that poorly serves the town. Simple problems that can be solved like you described a few minutes ago. Instead of sending the email, you made the call. Simple problems that can be solved with conversation are instead elevated to conflicts. And these conflicts result in higher legal costs. And it fractures our town. We need to be working together. It leads to this kind of Zoom, issues that Jason was bringing up. So the increasing level of conflict is, I think, evidence of wisdom. Somehow we're lacking some wisdom here. And I urge the select board to demonstrate leadership and wisdom by lowering the conflict and increasing the cooperation. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Anybody else in the room have comment? State your name and address, please.
Kendra Dickinson, 402 Oatman Way, speaking as a private citizen, a resident, and a taxpayer.
All three.
All three, because it's come to questions, so I figured I'd clarify. So I just want to give, again, credit to our current employee pool and our town volunteers to the efforts that they're putting forth to rectify the history of mistakes that have been made by predecessors of this town, not pointing to you, but to somebody, a few other folks. As much as we may not agree that rules need to be followed, especially legal ones, they're there. And the fact that maybe historically certain folks just let it slide, those days are over. And that is the Lancaster I can stand behind, not the greasing palms, let me get away with this because I've been doing it for 20 years. So I want to thank you for putting order back in the hen house, as much as it may be challenging at times, and I'm happy to cluck away with you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room? Seeing no one else in the room, we will go to Larry. Name and address, please. 2 minutes. Oh, sorry, Larry.
Larry,
You
you're
gotta
muted.
unmute yourself.
His name on the, oh yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, now, name and address.
Thank you. My name is Larry Shore, 750 George Hill Road. From the earliest public discussions, my wife Emily Rose and I have attended the meetings for the project that is recognized as the Hawthorne Lane Flexible Development Subdivision. In the fall of 2015, the planning board specifically asked the property owner to replace the traditional residential subdivision proposal with a flexible development proposal, one that provided significant protected open space between the development and George Hill Road. It was explained that flexible development open space would produce a result that was more consistent with the rural residential character of the area. In particular, Planning Board Flexible Development Condition 5 required that, quote, the applicant will provide to the Planning Board a perpetual conservation or agricultural preservation restriction as in MGL Chapter 184, Section 31, and Lancaster Zoning Bylaw, Section 220-15. Said parcel shall not be used as a site of any buildings or other permanent structures except that 2 drainage easements may be used for stormwater management. Town of Lancaster Bylaw 220-15, Section A1B, requires, quote, protection of water bodies, streams, wetlands, and wildlife habitats and other conservation resources, end quote. Section A1C requires, quote, protection of the character of the community through preserving open space with view from public roads, preservation of stone walls and other historic landscape, preservation of scenic vistas, and through siting of dwellings at low visibility locations, end quote. Section A1D requires, quote, protection of street appearance and capacity by avoiding developments close to such streets as George Hill Road, end quote.
Larry,
Yes.
you're at your 2 minutes.
Open space and
So you're at your time. If you have another 15, 20 seconds, I'm glad to give it to you. But everybody gets 2 minutes.
I apologize. I did not realize I was over 2 minutes. Do I have time to read my last paragraph?
I'll give you the last paragraph, but it's got to be a brief paragraph, hopefully not a very long one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Open space infractions are just some of the many legal infractions that still exist 7.5 years after the planning board's approval of this project. There's one aggrieved party that has never received any relief from the developer or the town. These are the residents of George Hill Road, and by extension, the residents of the town of Lancaster. Until these infractions are resolved to the satisfaction of all town oversight bodies, commissions, and departments, the flexible development subdivision must be found out of compliance. Thank you. I appreciate the added time.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. Anybody else online? Anybody else online? Anybody else online? Anybody else in the room? Seeing no one, public comment is over. Thank you all very much for your comments. We appreciate them. Next section of the agenda is section 6, administration, budget, and policy. First item, can you mute Larry? Sorry, we're gonna mute you, Larry. There you go. Proposed fire truck acquisition, removal from FY24, update from TA, which is town administrator, so. Town administrator, update.
So upon some further review of the fire truck lease, I sent some things to the chief earlier, and I want to say the chief's job is to bring forward things to the board and to the finance committee and say what we need, so it's on the record. But I would say that, number one, I think we need to wait, another year to go through this. This is not a knock at how it was done before because I wasn't here and I don't know. But I was unfamiliar with leasing, and so I asked for a copy of what would be the lease agreement. So what I believe has to happen and what I've now confirmed has to happen is that a 2/3 meeting of town meeting has to go before a contract is signed. So it can't be that, we're signing the contract and then the apparatus is being built and then it goes to town meeting. So that's the first step. And so we need to have that agreement in place and authorized by town meeting. Then the following months, the town could work out a contract. Now, the contract that was in place includes a few clauses in it, including an auto renewal provision, which is interesting because at the end of the lease, we would own the vehicle.
Right.
So I don't know why it would renew. So we'll have to dig into that. And also, while the company that is making the truck is listed on the bid list through the Houston-Galveston Council Program, and that is consistent with 30B, the leasing company is not. And so it could be that they're the same company, but they're doing business as the leasing agent is not. So the question is, and it doesn't have to be answered this evening, but the question is whether the board would want to put that onto the town meeting in May for 2/3 majority vote to approve the purchase, and then we would then work out the contract. So either way, it would be delayed about 18 months from what the fire chief had explained before. And am I missing anything?
Where are we on the price? Does it lock in the price?
It does not, no.
I didn't think so.
So,
We might want to buy your truck later, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. So,
Well, I'm glad we discovered the issues.
yeah, I mean, again, I just think, the other thing is that the agreement that the company sent us, they actually have an open solicitation for proposals, so their agreement only goes for, I think the expiration date might be June 30th. And so we need to make sure when it's getting an approval of the 2/3, that at that time, it would have an existing contract that would go further than July 1st, which right now it wouldn't.
Right, so the only action we need to consider tonight is to remove it from the FY24 capital plan.
Yes.
And then consider.
You could
putting
consider
back
it for
to
25, 26, any other
All right.
year thereafter.
Are there any questions before we entertain a motion to remove it from the FY24 capital plan?
I mean, no, that proposal sounds, oh, I'm sorry. I can't see.
Doesn't affect the ambulance, right?
No.
No.
Because I'm not paying, I mean, that thing is locked, right? Locked in?
Yes.
The ambulance is
It's your,
paid for.
Yeah.
Cash money.
All done.
your.
Good to go. Any other questions? Any fire truck related questions?
I just wanted to make sure,
Got it.
because the price increases, man, I'm not,
Right.
no
So
questions.
no fire truck related questions.
So, yes, good catch, and it sounds like that's what we kind of have to do. What is this, what do you mean as solicitation? So it was sort of a floating, this is the price right now? And then you're looking for a solid price come June? Is that right?
So for the solicitation, they're on a, like a bid list or a consortium, and the company that makes the machine or the apparatus is there. The leasing company is not listed, which doesn't mean that the leasing company won't be listed or it isn't a subsidiary of the apparatus company, but for Massachusetts, every listing has to be there, and so this is a Texas-based company, so it's just not. We can dig into that.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to remove it from the FY '24 capital plan?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, ayes have it, 3-0-0. Next.
So this was just to let you know about the capital requests. I'll do a quick screen, oop, the host has disabled. Oh, I am the host.
You want me to bring it back?
Yeah.
Why don't we go down to the next one? The next two, Alex, are you looking to table those?
Yes,
Just so we
please.
have further discussion. Okay, we'll table those. And now we're back.
Share now?
Wait to see. No, we're good.
Take a breath, take a breath. Sharing's coming up.
Sharing's coming up. I'm very excited to share. There we are. We got two more things off the agenda. That's pretty good.
Yep, so, so this is the outlay plan. It's obviously a draft and a work in progress, but what is here is what was asked from each of the departments in the categories that are here, and then the outlay that goes from 26 through 30. It's organized by urgent, necessary, desirable, to enhance services, expand services, or maintain services. What we have now in this is eventually what, if anything, would be funded, would go over there. I will obviously send this around as it becomes more solidified, but what I can say is that we haven't gotten the schools yet, but similar to in years past, there is $1,683,000, give or take, in requests that have been made. We generally, just from a planning standpoint, try to take urgent priorities that have a maintained service level. So they're urgent in order to maintain the service levels that we have now. And of the 1.683, 579,100 are considered urgent to maintain services. An additional 715 are considered necessary to maintain services. So together, that's about 1.3 million, clearly more than we have available. And so just prepping the discussion with either that will happen with the finance committee at the joint meeting, or if you wanted to have something different. That's it. It's not very great. I mean, it's some decisions to make, and obviously I'll send this around. Should be done by the end of the week.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So thank you for.
I would just for a second. Hey, Ralph and Jay, voices carry. So if you want to have a conversation, there's benches outside. It's a very echoey room, so we hear you.
You can't hear when you want to, and you do
And
hear
you
when
do
you don't
hear what
want
you
to,
don't
yeah. So first, thanks for getting this out early and talking about it, and it's good to see. Maybe when you get the chance to send it around, it would sort of be good to touch base on the current fiscal year 2024, what we already funded, the $1,000,009.
That's here.
And half.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to see what the status is, sort of where we
okay.
are,
Yeah, well,
where we are on those projects.
That is, yep, so the white is where we are, and the,
So for example, in
How much has been expended on PC4
Pond.
is 5,000.
pond and stream management, they've spent 5,000 of the 25, is that what you're saying?
correct.
Okay. So that would be great, just to look at all that. And the,
And I'm sorry, I should have said that the ones that have risen to the urgent and maintain or necessary and maintain have some detail here. The others are our best guesstimate or are part of fleet maintenance and things like that. But but as far as like the, yeah, it's gonna go up, so.
and I think the least sexy project, but I've mentioned it a couple of times in this, somebody who maintains an old house like yourself, Steve, is the Old Town Hall.
You will be happy to know, there it is. Structural assessment.
See?
Yeah.
Your wish is our command.
So it's 150, I went off of the library's structural assessment and sort of master plan, and that was about the cost for there. So that would be if it were to be bid in FY '25.
Okey-dokey. So that's, thank you for the updates.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is TA review update from you, Mr. Allison. Would you like to table that? It was just on the agenda.
No, so yeah, to give the update is I have received all of the feedback that's coming in. The update is that it's not fully compiled yet, but I expect it to be completed and presented for next meeting. Does the board have, I mean, what I'm assuming the procedure to be that we discussed is the compilation will be presented and the board will vote on it to accept it.
Our next meeting is the 1 hour meeting quick before the special town meeting. So perhaps
Next regular scheduled
the
meeting.
one on the
Any
2nd of
concerns with that
October?
process?
I have no concern with that process, do you?
No.
Cool.
Actually, it's in our communications. I can tell you when our next meeting after that is. It is October 2nd, at 6 p.m. It'll be on the agenda. Thank you. All right, we have 3 more items in this section. Vote to accept the special election warrant.
That was added to this agenda, I guess, because it was an asterisk.
Yes.
Did we? Oh, okay. We just didn't do the election part of it. I
Right.
got it.
See?
Do we need any,
We need to vote to accept
any
the
special verbiage?
So I'll offer a motion to accept the special election warrant for
That's right.
September 25th, 2023. We held at Town Hall, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. 8 p.m.
So close.
Split.
Seconded.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody else in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Are you in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, next item for bid. Let's vote to sign proponent and opponent statements relative to question 1 on September 25th. We have language for the proponent. We are seeking, that Mr. Gleason was nice enough to put together, we are seeking language for the opponent. If we do, I'm going to see if I have this process right. If we don't get it by, which we're going to have to schedule a special meeting because we don't have it tonight. So I would ask the board if we can have a special time, or special select board meeting this coming Monday at, say, 8 in the morning. It'll take about 4 minutes. If we don't have, it's a 1-item agenda, and if we don't have anything, then we don't have anything. If we don't have an opponent statement, after that meeting, we can acknowledge that and task council with writing one up that day, and then that will be the opponent statement. And that is consistent with
The special act.
special act, which we love that special act, don't we?
We do.
So that is, so we have the proponent language that Joe Gleason, the chairman of the school building committee, has submitted. I appreciate the submission. I asked for support in putting this together, and instead of support in putting it together, he just put it together. So that's the best kind of support. We can vote. Do we vote to accept the proponent statement or just wait until?
Up to you. You can do it at your special meeting, which might be easier
Yeah.
when you have both, but.
Right.
I think
So-
we should see it. It looks great, but maybe do both.
So let's then table this question to Monday at, can we do an 8 a.m. quick meeting on Monday morning?
Yeah.
Remote, entirely virtually remote.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Something we won't be
We
able
gotta
to
get
do.
the
So we
audio.
can't get rid
Make
of
sure the
Zoom.
audio's great. Audio and video.
It should be very quick.
I'm just saying it would be awkward if we
Yes.
got rid of Zoom, wouldn't it?
Well, okay. All right, then, last item. So that will be moved now to, that'll be the 1 item on our agenda for Monday morning at 8 a.m. So those of you who are wondering what's going to happen at 8 a.m. on Monday, read number 7 of section 6. That's it. Now, Kate, there's one other item that we wanted to discuss, yes?
Yes, there was a cease and desist order that was given to a vendor over the weekend. And both chiefs are here to discuss that matter as the subject matter experts.
Which I want to point out to the public at large, the reason why it is not on the agenda is it occurred over the weekend. Whichever one of the chiefs would like to start, go right ahead.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I read a lot of the comments on Facebook, and it occurred to me that maybe some other communities don't do entertainment licensing, and perhaps some people don't understand why the entertainment license is in place. So I'd just like to read a statement on it, then I'll go into details about this particular event. So the entertainment licensing is vital to the process of sharing information with the necessary boards to ensure a safe and successful event. During the process, the town department heads have the opportunity to gain the understanding of the size of the event, the potential hazards, and the impacts on the community. It's important to note that the town's entertainment license application has been posted on the town's website since June of '22 and can be found simply by completing a search. If you type in the word entertainment, 5 of the licenses are going to come up. The application phase requires that the applicant describe the detail and the proposed event. It further requests the hours of operation and contact information of the person or persons responsible. It is during that process that the town addresses any concerns. Building and fire departments will conduct or schedule any inspections necessary. The police department will express concerns and often require extra paid officers to address traffic and other safety issues. As part of the informational process, the police department has guidelines showing potential staffing requirements on the entertainment application page. Once the application is complete, it goes before the select board. If we, as department heads, have concerns or future requirements, they are documented and addressed prior to the submittal of the board. And I've always appreciated the process and the time that the board spends making sure that we've done our jobs on behalf of the community. Regarding this particular event, it was late June or early July that Mr. John Ford, a representative of the event company, came to the police station and dropped off a flyer. He made a request to have the police department participate in a 3-day Touch a Truck event. He was advised that we would not have the staffing or the funding to be able to manage the request for a private event, but that shift officers would enjoy the opportunity to do some community policing as their shifts allowed. I later recognized that one of the flyers had listed "at various times" regarding the police and fire department's participation in the Touch a Truck portion of the event, and I appreciated what I believe to be a mutual understanding. In cases like this, where we have had a first-time event, the police department has learned to watch Facebook posts and event pages to verify information supplied by the event holder to make sure it's consistent with any application received. Facebook had reported 350 to 400 people were interested in attending. Although not always accurate, it is at least a way to gauge interest in the attendance. At this time, I felt comfortable that the department understood the event and the organizers knew the process. In August, Sergeant Mortimer had another conversation with John Ford, who was requesting police security details overnight on Saturday and Sunday. Sergeant Mortimer came to me with the request and the details were filled. Sergeant Mortimer and I discussed the plan for traffic and the potential need for details based on how busy it might become. We are familiar with the car shows on Friday nights. We were comfortable that if it required the traffic plan, we would just utilize the same one with just 2 road detail officers. We changed the traffic pattern to one way in and one way out. It's been proven to be successful in those events. Late August, 29th to be exact, Sergeant Mortimer spoke with Mary Beth from Kimball's. She was not the event organizer, but she is the manager of Kimball Farm. And she had advised us that the event now was to have a helicopter land, and she wanted to know if all the permits had been requested. He told her that if the event was going to be as big as she was indicating, that the police department would more than likely require traffic details, and she indicated the event holders had a plan to have veterans control the traffic at the road and in the field, but she was concerned that that was not going to be enough. She again stated that the event holders were advised and required to get all the necessary permits. The Friday before the event, I instructed Saturday day shift to be on site early morning to monitor the event. If needed, they were to inform staff that they could direct parking on Kimball's Farm property, but they could not be out on the road. If traffic was concerned, we would supply detail officers. So that was, from my perspective, one, why it's so important for us. And again, I don't know if other communities do it, but I think that we are making the best use of that policy by having it go through each of the department heads, having us do our level of expertise to assure that we put the minimal impact on our community with the maximum safety required. And Mike has a couple things.
Basically, everything Chief Moody said pretty much stands. The importance of the entertainment permit, and I really think it needs to be updated to include a site plan, should be part of the permit. Because the site plan helps us to determine what is there. The same thing, I got this flyer dropped off back in like July. Says nothing on what they're doing except they're having a festival. And it was mentioned to us it was a touch a truck thing over the 3 days. Come Friday afternoon.
I'm sorry, Chief, what's a touch of the truck?
You bring a truck there, the kids can climb on it, see it.
Big truck.
So it's exactly what it says?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So talking with Chief Moody and the town administrator, we found out that this was expanded a little more. They started posting they're gonna have over 70 vendors. And comparing that with other events in town, one of the bigger events has 50 vendors, and we require a lot from them. So under the fire department code, with the Massachusetts Fire Code, the fire department is in charge of regulations for outdoor events, carnivals, and fairs. The authority having jurisdiction, the fire chief, is permitted to regulate all outdoor events such as carnivals, fairs, as it pertains to the access of emergency vehicles, fire protection equipment, and placement of stands, procession booths, exhibits, and the control of hazardous conditions dangerous to life and property. Also, life safety evaluation, the chief shall be permitted to order the life safety evaluation in accordance with the subsection. So basically, a site plan would be helpful so we know where everything is, what's going on, what's going in there. Permits for propane tanks are required, depending if they're having trucks that require them, any vendor that has them, and inspections. Through the building department, tents, anything over 120 square feet requires a permit from the building inspector and is inspected by both the fire department and the building department to make sure they meet compliance with the fire retardant acts. The Bolton Fair, we usually meet with them weeks before, and we have a logistical meeting. So we can go through these plans and we do a site walkthrough. So an event of this size would require that. So the fact that they didn't pull a permit with the Board of Selectmen for approval, we had no idea of the size of this event, of what it was going to be. So we had no choice but to order the cease and desist. That evening, the building commissioner wrote one and emailed it to the event coordinator and Kimball's Farms. They were notified at 5 p.m. on Friday, so there was plenty of time to notify their vendors. And at this point, that's really all we have. Just going forward, we need to make sure that this stuff is captured and they're giving us the right information. But I think the site plan addition to the application will be very helpful in going forward.
And just in terms of my office, at 3 p.m. on Friday, we received a call at the main number, the select board's number, from Devon's asking where our request to have a flyover their airspace, because MedFlight was supposed to be coming in, and the whomever it is that was coordinating that said the town was going to apply.
And to be clear, MedFlight was the helicopter that
Was the helicopter.
Yeah.
And so that's when I called the chief and said, are we having a helicopter come to town? And were we supposed to put in, that wouldn't be us anyway. And my understanding is that when MedFlight is here, they require a fire detail.
And we were never,
we
the fire
didn't have a
department
fire
was
detail.
never notified that the helicopter was coming.
We also didn't request to fly through the military airspace, so.
South Coast is restricted airspace.
Oh, I'm aware.
State police can't fly over it, so them coming over to Kimball's is very close to their border.
Well, I appreciate that, Chief. Anything else, Kate, to add?
No, I just, I appreciate Kimball's wanting to maximize everything, and I think the town has had a very good relationship with them, so.
Absolutely.
This perhaps is just someone that they hadn't done business with before that maybe thought that they had done everything or whatever, but never reached out to any of our offices. I checked with the clerk, and the only one at the time was a raffle permit, so.
And it is a shame because it's a great location. I'm sure it would have been lovely, but stand behind 1,000% the
Public
decision.
safety wise, it was the right thing to do.
Oh, of course.
Because if we did it and something happened, the first
No,
question.
without
was
it.
the town.
There's no gray area in this one. I would hope that businesses in our town and those, the business owners who live here, like educate, even if you don't even think you're ever gonna have an event of a certain size or scope, educate yourself about what the process is here. I'm sure, I don't wanna speak for the chiefs and for Kate, but I will, and make all three of them available if you have questions about how to host an event within the rules and guidelines of the town to make sure it's the safest and best time for folks. I would encourage folks to have that education, get that training, so that these circumstances don't have to take place. Clearly, through the timeline, there were plenty of opportunities for changes in course that could have allowed for things to move forward or for different decisions to be made that weren't. We made the only decision that we could. So, anybody on the board have a question or comment?
I just want to make a comment to the residents, and any businesses or anybody who wants to do business with Lancaster. You all may be asking, what's the big deal? Why is this, so important to Lancaster? So Bolton Fair is one of the most highly attended events in town. It is staffed across the board. Not this year, but the previous year, there was a medical emergency that happened during the event. It was an incredibly unfortunate situation. But we had EMT staff there, and I can't imagine a large event not having a review through our fantastic department heads, because I couldn't live with myself allowing something like that to happen with the potential. I worry sometimes, friendly board members, that I might be the fear monger on the board. I don't want to be a fear monger, but the reality is that these things happen.
Yep.
And that's a reality, and I don't want it to be my wife or anybody else's partner or spouse or grandparent that doesn't have medical attention there. So why is it a big deal? Health and safety is why it's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to both the chiefs. Chief Hansen, I think that's a great, having a floor plan just seems like so 101. It's something I've always wondered and looked at, so your suggestion is great. And I know that entertainment licenses are actually required by the state. They're all very formulaic, so it is law. There's some differences from town to town as far as fees and conditions and so on. But we definitely need to look at that, and your input is that. Also, I think it's clear that the all staff did an excellent job. I will say that people aren't known, we're immersed in town service. Not all people are born knowing they need an entertainment license for things. I remember I remember even way back with Bolton Fair, at one point, having to have quick meetings to try to get them done. So where possible, I think customer service is excellent, but where possible, wherever we can, just say, remember, you please get your...
I think they did that about 18 times by the time.
Well, they didn't, I don't think that it's their responsibility. No, it's not their responsibility, nor any of ours. That would be going the extra thing. It's really people's responsibility to get their own permits, but people do go over and above. So thank you for the suggestions.
Okay. Thank you both. There is nothing more unless you want to...
Just a quick new business, old business wrap up.
Yeah.
Is I did send to Kate, Steve, Jason, I didn't copy you because I didn't want to disrupt anything. The freight study suggestions in a concise form, so hopefully it's past deadline, but hopefully they did say that they were sort of holding a space for us. So with a draft, so hopefully you can look at those and approve.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have to, it has to be, you've got to submit them for the packet so that everybody can see the.
Well, it's there, so maybe Monday we could do a quick approval.
Monday, I've already promised everybody Monday is one item thing.
But it is way overdue.
Yeah, but we can.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Would it be this that you wanted to add it to, perhaps?
Everybody.
Sorry, I don't have electronically, but you wanted to add intersections,
Sure everyone saw
right?
that.
You wanted to add additional intersections?
There's actually a spreadsheet, I think it's the last one. I mean, it could probably go here too. All it was, just for everybody's edification, it was just adding something. We're getting a chance to get free traffic studies, and it would be nice to be able to get them, and so I was asking for things like the rotaries.
Right.
And
Which
some
is
of
great.
them have.
And at the last meeting, just to recall, we asked for written comments so we could review.
Yes, and I did, but thank you for the reminder, because
Yeah.
Steve gave me a kick in the bum. And congratulations to PJ Keating for 100 years. They invited us to a lovely
Yes.
thing, so we have this, which will go to the library and our office.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah. And they
Okay.
have offered to help us with projects.
That's good.
That talk to Kate.
That's very nice. All right, so at this point, we will be going to executive session, and we will not reconvene an open session thereafter. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to recess? I'll make a motion to
You have
adjourn
to read the
regular.
motion. Let's read the motion.
For Lancaster Select Board, we will enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, 21A for the following purpose. 1, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation in the matter of J. King and B. King versus the Town of Lancaster, as the chair has determined that having a discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the public body's litigation position, and not to reconvene in open session thereafter.
Yes, please.
Is there a second? Oh,
We can stay.
and that for the purposes of this executive
And for the
session.
purpose of this executive session, both fire and police chief will be present.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we're going into executive session, not to return thereafter. Have a good evening, everybody.